and welcome back to Blue Flag Bandits, the series that drives F1's worst cars so you don't have to, from 2010 all the way through to the present day, whenever that might be, using the Codemasters F1 games, and we're in our fourth season, 2013, and round number 2, Sepang, Malaysia, and driving the Marussia MR02 alongside Jules Bianchi. Australia was solid, if unspectacular. We finished 18th after qualifying last. Ran as high as 8th, I think it was, at one point through the pit stop phase. And had a decent little fight with some of the midfield cars like the Force Indias, the Toro Rossos, and the Williams. But in the end, fell behind them and finished a lap down. But again, solid if unspectacular. It was a good drive. We didn't make any major mistakes. We defended well and started getting to grips with these 2013 machines, the last of the screaming V8s, before we moved to the turbo hybrid era in 2014. And let's take a look at the standings after that race, because it was an almost perfect debut at Mercedes for Lewis Hamilton, but he was beaten to the punch by Sebastian Vettel, who leads the championship. Romain Grosjean took a third place for Lotus after fighting with Sergio Perez and Kimi Raikkonen near the end of the race. And Perez, a good debut for McLaren, looks pretty good for him, if it didn't in the real world. Massa finished 6th ahead of his teammate Alonso, who was championship runner-up last season in 2012. Rosberg's 8th ahead of Button and Webber, and that's how the point scorers finished. And then it was Maldonado in 11th, Sutil, Verne Hulkenberg, De Resta, Ricciardo, Valtteri Bottas. We finished behind the Finn, but we finished ahead of Bianchi, Van der Garde, Peak, and Gutierrez, who didn't finish. In the constructors, things look a little bit different. Lotus are just 1 point behind Red Bull at the top, with Mercedes down in third, constituting more down to Rosberg's lower finish. McLaren jumped ahead of Ferrari, our 2012 Constructors Champions McLaren, already 12 points off Red Bull, who are looking to wrestle that crown back. And then it was Williams, Force India, Toro Rosso, Sauber, Marussia, and we're ahead of Caterham. So that's where we stand, coming into round number 2 here at Malaysia. And this was the site of what could only be described as a ridiculous bit of AI trickery last season. I say trickery. Everybody pitted at the end of lap 1, and we took the lead, and we led for 11 laps. It was the only 11 laps we led all through 2013. 2012, we're in 2013. Forget what year it is. And we ended up finishing third after holding off an onslaught, really, from the likes of Kimi Raikkonen, Fernando Alonso. It was Romain Grosjean who took the victory in the Lotus ahead of Perez's Sauber, and we finished third. I don't think it's going to be quite the same this season, but this is a circuit I really enjoy and actually quite miss. We don't have it on the calendar anymore, and there's no real indication that it's going to come back, which means it's relegated to sort of national racing and the occasional enduro and occasionally Super GT as well, I think. There's not a huge amount that goes on at Kuala Lumpur's Sepang circuit anymore, not of an international scale anyway. And I really do think that's a crying shame. This is one of those circuits that I think a lot of people really, really like. And if you have also been keeping up with me over on Twitch for the Horizon streams, you'll know that a few of the drivers there really like Sepang. And pretty much anyone I speak to about Formula One, when you say, well, where do you want to go back to? A lot of people pick here. They pick Turkey as well. And a few people also picking a few other, maybe lesser known circuits, but a lot of people really do hold Sepang in high regard, and it is a shame that we're not going there anymore. Whether the modern F1 cars would be able to have great racing at Sepang, very different story. But 2013 was one of those years that people talk about an awful lot, and I'll get into that as we go through our practice session. So let's go run some laps. We've got an R&D test to do as well. While we do, we'll talk about that very famous 2013 Malaysian Grand Prix. Running 2 of the 2013 season saw the grid head to Malaysia for the 15th running of the Malaysian Grand Prix. Several teams arrived with upgrades and learnings from the season opener just a week earlier, with Sauber, Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes and Lotus bringing revisions to their car. For the second race weekend in a row, the FIA encountered an issue with the telemetry link between race control and the cars, meaning that the FIA couldn't inform the drivers of blue, yellow or red flags and could not disable DRS in wet weather. This meant the teams had to inform race control when DRS was disabled, while drivers were advised to comply with DRS rules and be aware of trackside boards. The drivers were also given the third practice session to acquaint themselves with the new procedures. First practice was a dry affair, with many drivers waiting until a third of the session passed before setting lap times. It would be Webber on top of the timesheets ahead of Raikkonen, who still managed to set the second fastest time after spending 55 minutes in his garage with a KERS issue, while Vettel would take third by the end of play. The second session began in dry conditions, though it would rain heavily during the session, allowing many to get their feel for the intermediate tyres. Raikkonen would top the session ahead of Vettel and Massa, while in the third practice session, which would be run in dry conditions, Vettel led the way ahead of Hamilton and the impressive Adrian Sutil. Qualifying began in dry conditions, but with a threat of rain during the hour. Q1 would remain dry, with no major shocks at the back of the grid, both Marussia and Caterham cars dropping out, with Valtteri Bottas and Jean-Eric Vergne. While the second qualifying session would begin dry, there would be a downpour 5 minutes from the end, catching out quite a few drivers lower down the order. The rain also caught out Romain Grosjean in the Lotus, who could only make it up to 11th, finishing just ahead of the Saubers, Maldonado, Di Resta and Daniel Ricciardo. The final session saw drivers continue to use the intermediate tyres, some choosing to use new tyres for their fastest runs, while others would use worn sets to preserve them. Vettel would end the session in pole, ahead of Massa and Alonso. Hamilton would take 4th, ahead of Webber and Rosberg. Raikkonen would only make 7th, but was penalised for blocking Rosberg and had to start 10th, which elevated Button, Sutil and Perez. Rain fell 30 minutes before the race start, leaving turn 3 flooded. This caught out a number of drivers on their way to the grid, notably Valtteri Bottas, who damaged his front wing and had it replaced while sat on the grid. Vettel led the field away, while the Ferraris, Webber and Hamilton were almost 4 wide behind, Alonso moving into second, but he hit the back of Vettel, who he believed had braked early, damaging his front wing. Webber would move back past Hamilton and be battling Alonso through the first lap, with the Ferrari's front wing scraping along the track. Ferrari didn't anticipate it attaching though, an assumption which would be proven wrong at the start of the second lap. Webber pulled alongside Alonso into turn 1, and the wing detached and folded under the Ferrari, sending Alonso off into the gravel and into retirement.
Tyre temperatures are looking really good.
The track would begin to dry rapidly, with Vettel being the first to move to dry tyres on lap 4, but he'd hit a damp patch exiting the pits and fell behind Perez, Sutil and Grosjean, though he did manage to get back past the Lotus on the drier part of the circuit. Webber now led the way, extending his stint while the track was still too damp for dry tyres, at least in his opinion, eventually pitting at the end of lap 8. He would, however, initially drive into the McLaren pit box, which cost him a little bit of time. He would still, however, get out in the lead of the race, and he'd maintain that lead into the second pit stop phase, the Australian pitting first at the end of lap 15. Vettel would take the lead and be instructed by the pit wall to push to retain it through the stops. The German wouldn't manage to pull a gap big enough though, and would fall back behind Webber when the German made his stop. Sutil would pit around the same time, but lose 84 seconds due to recurring captive wheel nut failure, both he and Di Resta would be called into the box to retire their cars by Force India.
Fantastic data. This will really help the team develop the car.
Vettel would draw back up to Webber, and he'd be within DRS to attack his teammate, with Vettel radioing the pit wall to request that Mark Webber move out of the way, as he believed himself to be the faster driver. Webber would, though, respond and move away from Vettel into his third stop. Webber was once again first to pit for Red Bull, with Vettel pitting a lap later and coming out behind his teammate. Webber attempted to pass Button for the lead, failing at his first attempt but eventually passing the Brit. Button would then pit but be released before the front right was attached, costing him 2 minutes in the pits as he was pushed back to have it refitted. Hamilton, who'd found himself running second through the pit stops, was asked to slow his pace as Mercedes couldn't match the Red Bulls ahead, ceding position to Vettel, who went and chased after Webber. The Red Bull pair took their final pit stops, Webber coming out just ahead of his teammate on warm tyres. Red Bull radioed both cars with the message Multi-Map 21, a coded message to hold position. On lap 46, however, Vettel attacked Webber, the Australian forcing Vettel towards the pit wall, with the cars nearly touching wheels along the straight. Vettel forced his way through, though. Webber held the outside into turn 1 and through turn 2 in an attempt to get back past the German, but Vettel would get through turns 3 and 4 in the lead. Red Bull team principal Christian Horner got on the radio to reprimand Vettel, saying, "This is silly, sad," but he would not relinquish the position. Webber attacked Vettel into turn 1 on the next lap, but he was forced towards the grass. Vettel would then maintain the lead to the end of the race, ahead of Webber, leading to a heated exchange in the cool-down room between the two drivers. The classic Multi-21 said, along with some more comments during the podium interviews and post-race press conferences. The pair would apologise to each other in the team, though Vettel would later retract that apology, while Webber had to answer to Red Bull CEO Dietrich Mateschitz between this race and the next. Hamilton, away from all the drama, would come home third and also have to make his own apologies to Nico Rosberg, after Ross Brawn had asked the Mercedes guys to also hold position. The points would be completed by Massa, Grosjean, Raikkonen, Hülkenberg, Perez and Vergne. What's the objective in Sepang then? Well, this was the site of our first incredible result in 2012, mostly thanks to AI shenanigans pitting at the end of lap 1, and I very much doubt we can replicate that in Marussia. We started solidly, if unspectacularly, on Australia, and I feel like it's going to be the same here in quali, but I do like this track. So let's aim for 18th place and see if we can beat at least one of the other established cars on the grid.
We've dropped down into the bottom half of the field. We need to keep pushing. It's not going to be easy getting into the next qualifying session, but we know you'll give it your all.
In the garage then for qualifying for Malaysia. Practice was alright. We had a low fuel run to increase the rear stability of the car, which we passed, so hopefully that will come into effect shortly, which will help me because this car is twitchy as anything. Finished the practice session P19. Just a couple of tenths off Valtteri Bottas though, and conditions did change later on, but we did beat Bianchi and Peak and Vandergaard, so that's at least better than Australia. Hopefully we can replicate that in qualifying, although as soon as we actually were able to use KERS again, because we weren't allowed to during our R&D test, we didn't actually improve, I don't think. So it's going to be interesting to see what we can do, but let's get out there, get some laps in, see if we can edge closer to the Williams this time around. And then to our fastest lap in Q1, and you can see that we are in between two cars. We've got Charles Peak in front of us and there's a Williams just in behind us, so it compromises our line into turn 1 a little bit. We have to stay a little wide just to allow the Williams space. Charles Peak then gets slightly in our way. We give him a little nudge just to get him out of it, and we run side by side through turn 3. It really has compromised our pace, but we get a little bit of slipstream out towards turn 3 into turn 4, and we're down, but not by a huge amount. Take that one fairly nicely, diving up the inside of the coat to finally give ourselves some free air through this sweeping chicane in the start of the second sector. Keep it nice and tidy, have to lift a little bit and run a touch wide, but use some curves just to boost out of it. This double right, we take a huge amount of curb on the inside, which compromises our line through the second part, and again costs us a little bit of pace. But down into this tight hairpin near the end of the second sector, not quite clipping the apex on the inside, but keeping it fairly tight. We're down again into the end of the second sector, and somehow we've got to make it all up in the third sector. Fairly nice through that right-hander into another sweeping S's, but to this really tricky penultimate corner. We get on the brakes early enough, we run a wide entry, clip the apex on the inside, and get to the exit curb as well, really tidily through that particular corner. It's now just a long straight to a hairpin and then another long straight. So we're hard on the power and then on the brakes at exactly the right time, swing the car in, and we get on the power as early as we dare, get the DRS open, we'll cross the line, but it's not going to get us out of the drop zone.
You're losing a lot of time in Sector 3. You're where we predicted you would be. You're starting in 19th tomorrow.
And the end of qualifying in Malaysia in our kind of traditional 19th place. About a second off third pace, Bottas as well, a little bit further ahead of us. But we finish ahead of Bianchi, Van der Garde and Peak, so that's already a better result than we had in Australia, and we've beat the team objective, which was 20th. There was a moment early in the session where the likes of Ricciardo, Bottas, Rosberg were all down in the bottom, and the bottom sort of 6, and we were in the midfield, and I thought, you know what, we might actually be all right here, though there seemed to be a lot of traffic issues for everybody, but they all immediately went quicker. And we shaved just a 100th, I think it was, off of our best time. Even though our lap was a bit scruffy, we still made it a little bit quicker and kept ourselves ahead of our teammate, which is always a good yardstick. We saw, though, in Australia, we started at the back and we were in the top 10 by the end of the sort of first phase. Maybe we can do similar in Malaysia. It's going to be a bit of a concertina into the first couple of corners. Maybe, just maybe, we can move our way forward. And I actually feel like we're all right here, even with the 2 DRS zones and the long straights. We might be able to scrap for something. But that's going to be all to play for. Let's cross to the race and see how we do in Sepang. Well, come on into the garage then for the Malaysian Grand Prix, where, as you may have heard there, a little bit of bad news about our upgrades, but that won't come now till Bahrain, but that's by the by. We start P19 and there's a 78% chance of rain here in Malaysia, which could always provide chaos. We'll take a look at the grid and we'll have a little chat about what we're hoping for. Sebastian Vettel took pole position ahead of Lewis Hamilton with Webber in third, then it's Button, Rosberg, Alonso, Massa, Raikkonen, Perez and Hulkenberg in the Sauber breaking into the top 10 there. Grosjean 11th, just ahead of Ricciardo, and then Sutil and Gutierrez, Maldonado, De Resta, and then those dropped out in Q1. Bottas, Verne, there we are, P19 ahead of Bianchi, Van der Garde and Charles Pic. And if there's going to be rain, that could easily make this race a chaos fest. We saw last year that the AI did weird things, all pitted at the end of lap 1, and we went on to take a podium, an unlikely and unexpected and actually quite handy for HRT podium. I don't think it's going to be the same this time, but we're looking at a 3-stop race in dry conditions. If it rains, that might limit it down to a 2. It might even make it a 4 if it goes from wet to dry and back again. Even in a half-distance race, it could still do all that. But I feel alright around here. This car feels pretty good. I quite like this circuit. I seem to be driving quite well. So, kind of hoping that we can get a good start, move forward, and if the rain, or when the rain comes, make the call at the right time and try and also gain some positions through that. Because as we saw in 2012, when the rain came, the AI were a little slow to react, and we tended to get it just right. And when we did, we gained a lot out of that. So, the team are obviously going to be looking for a position around here. We finished 18th last time out because Gutierrez fell. I think let's just try and maintain, especially if there's a huge weather change. So 19th is going to be our goal. But let's see if we can make some spots, time our calls right, and maybe, just maybe, come out with a decent result. But let's head to the grid for the 2013 Malaysian Grand Prix. Vettel on pole, Hamilton alongside him. There we are. 2 Caterhams behind us. There's Bianchi next to us. The lights are on, and the 5th light. And away we go. A little bit of wheel spin means Bianchi's got the run on, so that regard I think it's also going to have the run on. And peak starts, I feel, in this game are going to be tricky. Oh, we get on the brakes, maybe a touch too late, but we get up the inside of Bottas, even after nudging him out of the way. We nearly go into the back of his teammate. But we gained some spots there. We're ahead of Valtteri Bottas. To be on a very different tyre strategy to everybody else as well. Let's try and get up the inside of a couple more. Gutierrez and Ricciardo dispatched. They're going 3 wide up ahead. It's pushing people off circuit. Button down to 11th. Well, remains 11th, should I say, as we go to the outside of Maldonado. We'll have the inside for the next corner. Great move on the Williams. And he nearly takes out, I think that's possibly Nico Hülkenberg, who's gone backwards off the start. P12, solid first few corners as we close up to the back of Button, who gets all out of shape behind Sutil, and will pass the McLaren here as well. First lap always the time to make the gains, and we've certainly made them there. Fringes of the top 10 again, like we were in Australia. Penultimate corner though, always a pain. He's going to look to the inside into the hairpin, but break late enough. And there we are, end of lap 1, and we are going to be crossing the line in P11. Vettel seems to have got away brilliantly. He's out on his own at the front. Button once again goes to the inside, and once again doesn't break late enough. Result in front of the 2009 champ. See so far in our timeline, Mark Webber's a one-time champion, Vettel's a one-time champion, Hamilton's a two-time champion now as we run wide at the penultimate corner. It's my least favourite corner on this circuit, and Hülkenberg's the man that gets past us.
Keep on him, he might
rather than Button. Let's try and sit in the Sauber slipstream. Also defending from the McLaren, and we'll get back past Nico Hülkenberg up the inside. Blocking out on exit. Now we've probably lost Adrian Sutil, although he's still
the car
visible.
Ahead is running the option tyre. We may have trouble closing the gap during this stint.
The only ones that started on the primes. We've got to get this penultimate corner right, or at least better than the last lap. To the inside, the Hulk's going to get past Button. He's going to get a nose ahead of us briefly. Past Maldonado, the man that's fallen out of this race so far. Good for us in our battle with Williams. If we can score a good result here, seeing as the 2026 Cadillac driver Valtteri Bottas is much further down the field, and I've opened the door for Button there. like Australia. They just try and usher him towards the grass.
Some marbles, expect reduced grip until you can wear them off. Stay on the racing line.
Oh, and I try and get late on the brakes to get back past Button. Doesn't work. I think the McLaren may now be through. Yeah, Button's gone. Got offline, tried to brake late to get back past the McLaren and it just didn't work out for us. It's going to be Hulkenberg's turn and it's Gutierrez actually. Battling with the two Saubers here now. Button scampers away.
We're doing really well. 6 places up on where we expected to finish.
Again, just running wide into that penultimate corner. I really can never get the line right as much as I like this circuit. And now we're going to be essentially double teamed by the Saubers. Hulk moves past Gutierrez, but Hulk is going in. I get DRS, that's good.
Solid drive. We're 5 positions up on where we were expecting to finish.
Webber's the man out in the lead at the moment. I guess pit stops have happened. You can see some of the leaders coming in. They're coming out on the primes. There's Alonso. They are starting to struggle on these tyres. First drops of rain are appearing. We are struggling on these tyres, but I'm going to try and make it to our actual designated pit lap as I run wide into the penultimate corner once again. So Gutierrez is going to go in. Rosberg and Raikkonen have been in. And they're not really my fight.
Raikkonen should be coming in for tyres within the next 4 laps.
Again, we'll get DRS off the Sauber.
Currently, we're 9 places above where we predicted. Let's carry this through to the end.
Back in the lead. Raikkonen on the option tyre.
The pit window is open. Box this lap.
Not really going to fight Raikkonen too hard. The same probably goes for Rosberg. Rosberg time here. You can see that we can barely.
At this stage. Watch the grip levels. Pit in if you need to.
The car pointing in the right direction. I think that's Sergio Perez.
We're ready for you. Box in this lap.
Behind the Mercedes.
Be aware, we think the car behind is trying to save fuel.
Indeed, and Jensen Button.
We're gaining on the car ahead in sector 2.
Tap the back of Perez as he brakes
Looking
into
at the
the
radar,
hairpin.
it looks like we might have light rain in about 5 minutes.
We're going to 11th. We're going to lose a couple more spots here. Sutil goes past. I think we might actually. Yeah, we're going to fall a few spots down to stop in later. Back onto the options though. Hulkenberg through, DeResta through, Verne, Ricciardo, Gutierrez, Bottas.
Be careful not to drive over the white line when coming out of the pits or you'll get a penalty.
Well ahead though of Vandergaard, Peak and Bianchi. So far turned it into another solid if unspectacular race, but I feel we could get some action soon if we can close up to the likes of Bottas, Verne and Ricciardo. We'll get DRS. Penultimate corner really not doing us any favours.
Our data's showing that the car ahead's likely to be running
Ricciardo's in.
conservation mode. His times will be slightly slower than normal.
At least jump Daniel Ricciardo. It's got to be an indication that some of the guys in front of us are going to be pitting shortly.
to rain. It's just light at the moment, but if it worsens, we'll need to switch to inters or wets.
The official rain is starting as we pull our sort of traditional penultimate corner shenanigans. Will have definitely cost us time to everybody, but again, I think the guys in front might be starting to find their way into the pits now anyway. Well, they will be shortly. Right, a couple of the guys up ahead are in. DeResta's one of them. We may jump the Scotsman. And also, we won't jump Hulkenberg, but there he is. Primes. We may need to pit in again, Nico. Half a second or so on Bottas, who's been passed by Hulkenberg. It's probably why, though. Nico's probably got past him and held him up a little bit. That's further up the order pitting in. And it looks like most of the little clutch of cars that jumped me in the last set of pit stops are pitting in. Starting to see a bit of spray off the tyres. They're all going to inters now, though.
Our data's showing that the car ahead's likely to be running in fuel conservation mode. His times will be slightly slower than normal.
Ahead of Gutierrez, Bottas, and
we estimate Sauber will be bringing Hulkenberg in soon, within the next 5 laps. Recommend you switch over to intermediates next time you pit. The current tyre you're running on is struggling for grip in these conditions.
Well, that is an absolutely brilliant call.
Okay, times are looking good.
Because it is my pit lap.
Intermediate tyres confirmed.
Everybody seems to be peeling off into the pits. Now right up behind us. He's going to try and go round us.
Intermediate tyres confirmed.
Oh, we hit him as he's trying to head into the pits as well. So he will jump us. Triple confirming intermediate tyres. After what happened in Singapore last year. Do get inters, so that's good. Right, in 14th place, just in behind John-Eric Verne. We expected to stop in about 15 minutes. That probably won't affect the end of this race. Everybody seems to have pitted, so nobody up ahead is coming in. Verne has scarpered, but we've at least stayed ahead of the likes of Gutierrez here and Sutil. Gutierrez close, he's going to try and attack, but just hold him off there. DeResta, it wasn't Sutil behind us, it's Paul DeResta. He gets past the Mexican. Corner again, catching me out. Nearly just spin into DeResta. That was Bottas past. Not just past DeResta, past us as well. And DeResta's going to try at the inside. Let's cross down the inside of Bottas and we'll take P14 back.
You're doing well. It's coming together for us. We're 4 places up on our predictions.
There's time to need to drop the fuel though.
The pit crew are ready for you at the end of this lap. Pit this lap.
Didn't realise we were needing another stop. I know these Pirellis are bad, but I didn't think they were that bad. And yeah, everybody is heading in, so it's not going to be just me. Ricciardo stays out because Verne was in. We're back out ahead of Valtteri Bottas, so that's good. Now going to be about whether we can get back past Ricciardo. Verne's going to be coming in again. I mean, me too. Me too, apparently. His tyres, his Inter's not lasting particularly long. Well, Adrian Sutil has retired, and we've moved up to P13, which means that with the way the pit stops are going to work out, Ricciardo likely to jump back ahead of us. We might be able to fight here for 14th place at the end of this one. All of the curves to use this lap. Doesn't look like we're going to get caught by the leaders, I don't think. Just because of where everybody is on track and the fact that everybody's going to stop again, I guess. Bottas has a little look into the hairpin, but we are able to just block the Williams off. Verne has come in. Bottas going to come in. He is. And Ricciardo, I guess, is once again going to be staying out. Yeah, down to 14th. There goes Ricciardo. The MFD was saying that we'd come out in 13th. And I did think that Ricciardo would be coming in. Back out ahead of Valtteri Bottas again.
The track is clear. Track is clear.
I think we have been lapped, you know.
You have no more scheduled pit stops, so look after your tyres.
I'm sure somebody went through turn 1 and it wasn't Ricciardo. I think we have fallen a lap down. Ricciardo is peeling into the pits. I think that's Jean-Eric Verne heading into turn 1, so that would suggest that we have gone a lap down. Tierra is now the man behind us. He's managed to get past Valtteri Bottas. Ricciardo starting to leave his pit box, but not quick enough. We will get back in front of the Australian. Back into P13. I think Vettel has gone by us, you know. Gutierrez will get by there. He should, hopefully. Yep, be able to break him into the hairpin. Back in front of the Sauber. Gutierrez to the outside. We'll get a nose in front, but we'll get back past him. If this is our final lap, then this is the only lap we're going to have to defend now. Battling hard for P13 here. The track is drying out. Late on the brakes to defend from Esteban Gutierrez. And I think has now been passed by Ricciardo. Struggling on these tyres. Was our final lap. Sebastian Vettel wins. Ricciardo's going to try and go around the outside into the hairpin. Break early enough to just sit on the apex on the inside, round the final corner. It's a straight fight to the line, and we should make it. We do. P13 in Malaysia. th place, first of those that finished a lap down. Solid result, actually, I think, considering at the top end of things, Sebastian Vettel took a comfortable victory ahead of Mark Webber. Lewis Hamilton finished third, just ahead of Felipe Massa. Literally just ahead of Felipe Massa. Alonso was fifth, a bit further back. Rosberg down in sixth, and it was Raikkonen, Perez, Grosjean and Hulkenberg, your point scorers. Nico managing to sneak back into the points by the end of the race. Jenson Button finished outside of them in 11th, ahead of Jean-Eric Vergne. There we are, 13th, ahead of Ricardo, Gutierrez, Di Resta, Bottas. Van der Garde beat Bianchi, but Bianchi beat Peak. Adrian Sutil didn't finish, nor did Pastor Maldonado. What does that do to the championship standings? Sebastian Vettel leads the way by 17 points ahead of Lewis Hamilton. Massa's up in third, a point ahead of Mark Webber. Then Grosjean, Perez, Alonso and Raikkonen all fairly close together on points. And then it's Nico Rosberg in 9th. Button has 2 points in 10th. Hulkenberg gets his first point of the season to move into 11th ahead of Maldonado, Vergne and Sutil. We move up to 15th after our 13th finish here, ahead of Ricardo, Di Resta, Gutierrez, Bottas. Van der Garde's ahead of Bianchi, but he's ahead of Peak. And an unusual look at the constructors, because I went forward without actually checking the constructors. Just silly things, I guess. Red Bull lead the way ahead of Mercedes, with Ferrari in third, Lotus down to fourth, and it's McLaren and Sauber, your only point scorers. Williams is seventh ahead of Toro Rosso, Force India. There we are, still in 10th place, just ahead of Caterham. And actually, Malaysia, very, very solid race. Drove well, defended well, strategized our way into a 13th to a point, really, making the right calls at the right time to move to the right tyres, but still just outside the points. But I think we're getting there. I think we're starting to really understand how these cars drive, and that's actually worked to our advantage. We should now, I think, be comfortably beating Caterham on a regular basis, he says. Hopefully we can, and we can continue that run all the way through the season, but we just need to score a point somewhere to keep our season's points tallies going. Whether we're going to be scoring enough to beat the 2011 Team Lotus car remains to be seen, but there's still a lot of the season to go. Thank you so much for joining me for Malaysia and the weird end screen, thanks to my own stupidity, really. Let's put it down to that. Like, share, comment, subscribe, do all the good stuff. Hopefully you'll join me for the next one in China, where we can maybe have a good showing at Shanghai. In the meantime, take care of yourselves. Bye for now.